When it comes to packing, nothing takes the stress out of it like organization. And the best way to organize yourself is with packing cubes and compression cubes in particular. So today I'm going to be reviewing 7 compression cubes that I personally own. And make sure you stay tuned to the end because I'm going to show you a compression cube unlike any other one you've ever seen and work really well for one bag travel. So stay tuned. So let's talk a little bit about the difference between packing cubes and compression cubes. Packing cubes are there to keep your luggage organized, and usually they function the best in clamshell luggage. And packing cubes can be organized and packed out any way you like because their sole purpose is to keep you organized in your suitcase so you know where everything is. Compression cubes serve a totally different function. They actually take the air out of your clothing and make it smaller. Now, there is an ongoing debate on what's the better method for packing out your compression cubes. So let's go over that first, and then I'll start the review of the compression cubes. I personally, when I'm using a compression cube, like to flat pack everything. But a lot of people say that rolling their clothing helps provide them with even more space in the cube. So I'm going to show you a quick experiment, and we'll find out together who was right. First, I'd like to address how I flat pack my clothing for the compression cubes, and that is I maximize the width and the length of the compression cube with the fold. So I'm going to give you an example. So I have a shirt here, and I'm folding it to the width of this compression cube. So I'm going to fold it to like here and over to about there. So now I know I'm using the entire width of the compression cube. And now, because here's the length of it, I can basically fold it about halfway. And I know I'm going to get the full width and length of the compression cube, like this. And I'm going to rotate the folds so that the bottoms go back and forward, so that it's nice and even. So when I roll a shirt for a compression cube or a packing cube, I start the same way with the width. But because I'm rolling, I don't have to worry about the length. So I just roll it up from the bottom like this. Now, I have here a compression cube here with 14 shirts in it. That's a lot of shirts, and a medium-sized compression cube. And I'm going to see how well it compresses. So at the top zippered, and here's the moment of truth. And by the way, you can see now why the toggles are so handy to have when you're closing. Now this is the way it packs up, and I could get 14 shirts in here. Now, it is a little lumpy and bumpy, but it does hold 14 shirts. Let's see how it goes when I go to pack it flat pack style. So here I have the exact same 14 shirts folded, and I've alternated the necklines from one side to the other to make it very even. Now normally I put these one by one into the bag, and I tuck in the corners here to make sure that I get the maximum use of the packing cube. And I got all 14 in there, no problem. I'm going to show you a little hack that I like to do when I'm using compression cubes. Now when I go to zipper a compression cube, I like to make a little groove along the way, which is so much easier when they're flat packed like this, so that the zippering process is a lot easier. So that's what I'm doing here, if you're wondering what I'm doing with my fingers. What it actually does is it makes it easier for the zipper to get together. It's always the last 2 turns, by the way, that are the hardest. This is the last one. And that wasn't hard at all. It was definitely much easier than it was with the rolled ones. And I can do this. And now look, it's all nice and evenly packed. Now what have we proved here? It does hold the same amount, whether you roll it or you flat packed it. But I personally think that it makes for a neater compression when you do it this way, and it makes it easier to zipper up. Now, if you still want to do a rolling style, go ahead. But for me, I like the flat pack style. Now, when it comes to picking packing cubes, my personal philosophy is you pick packing cubes that go with the ecosystem of your luggage. Now, what do I mean by ecosystem? The ones that actually work with your luggage. So that way you know you're maximizing the amount of space within your luggage because those cubes were made for your luggage. But this is different with compression cubes because very often compression cubes are not part of a luggage system. So when you're picking compression cubes, be mindful and try to pick compression cubes that work within your luggage so that you can maximize the footprint of your luggage. Now let's do compression cubes 101. Now this is my Gonex compression cube. Now this compression cube has an open webbing here so your clothing can breathe, and I happen to like that. Now, on the other hand, if you're going on a sandy vacation, you might not want an open mesh like this because the sand can get out all over your suitcase. You might want one that has a solid front, like this trip compression cube, which has a solid front. So you know if you're putting something sandy into this bag, it's going to stay in this bag and not get out all over your suitcase. Another thing compression cubes should all have is a handle and two different colored zippers, because it makes a difference when you're just zippering up the top or when you're compressing, like this. The other thing a good compression cube should have is a toggle like this, because it makes closing it easier. Now, my Gonex, which I've used for years, does not have a toggle on it. And although I really do like them, they are not as easy to close as ones with toggles on them. Another thing to consider when picking your compression cubes is if they can do dual duty and be also used as a packing cube, in case you just want to keep your luggage organized. The depth of the compression cube really does matter, and they're not all created equal. For instance, this one measures out to 4.5 inches. And that's a pretty deep compression cube. And that can be used as a packing cube. But this one measures out at 3.5. And you can see the difference here side to side because this one's much deeper. And of course, this one's going to hold more. So that's an important feature to think about. Now, any item I showed you in this video, the links will be included in the description down below. Also, if you have any questions about the compression cubes that I showed you in this video, or you have any compression cubes that you want to recommend, leave that in the comments section down below. Also, if you've enjoyed this video or you've learned anything from this video, please don't forget to hit the like and subscribe button down below, because that tells YouTube that you would like more of my content delivered to you. So now let's move on to the review of the 7 packing cubes that I have for you. Now, all these compression cubes are mine. I'm not being sponsored by anyone. All we want to do is come to the conclusion of which compression cubes are the best compression cubes for you. All of these compression cubes are all going to be the medium-sized compression cube, so I can compare apple to apples. Now, I'm going to be rating this on the Perry scale, and it's 3 categories to this Perry scale. The first one is general construction. And what am I looking for? I'm looking for handles on the bag. I'm looking for 2 different colored zippers. I'm looking for toggles on those zippers. The second one will be how much it can hold. And the third one will be how easy it is to zipper. Because if it doesn't zipper up easily, I'm not interested in that compression cube. And each of these categories, we're going to get 3 points. So 9 being the best possible score. So without any further ado, let's get on to the first contender. Now this is the bagsmart compression cube. And it works with the ecosystem of the bagsmart backpack. And it's made out of ripstop nylon, and it does have a mesh top here. It has 2 different color zippers. It has a blue zipper for compression and a white zipper for just unzipping, and it has toggles to pull, and it has handles. So in all the important points, it has it all. So I'm giving this a 3 out of 3 in just general construction. Now let's talk about the volume of clothing that it held. It held 14 shirts. That's a ton. So I am giving that a 3 out of 3 again. And in ease of compression, when I went to compress, the bag did not fight me. And that was with 14 shirts in there. So it scores a 3 out of 3 for ease of compression. So that gives this bag a total score of 9. So let's move on to the next bag. So this is the Gonex compression cube. And it also has a web front to it. Has a little bit of ripstop nylon in the front. It does have a handle. It does have 2 different color zippers. It has a gray zipper here and a black zipper here for compression. What it doesn't have is a toggle for the pull. So for general construction, I'm going to give it a 2 out of 3. Now let's see how much it holds. Now luckily for me, all of these are medium-sized packing cubes, so I don't have to keep refolding my shirts. And for the sake of expediency, I'm going to flat pack because I happen to like it better that way. We'll see how many we get in here. I packed 9 shirts in here, and you can see that this bag is pretty full. If I stuff it more than that, this bag probably will not compress, but let's see if it even compresses with the 9. Now remember I said that I like to put my finger in the middle to get it to compress. It's holding 9. For volume, I'm going to give it a 2. But for ease of zippering, despite the fact it doesn't have toggles, it's zippered up pretty easily. So I'm going to give it a 3. So that gives this bag a total score of 7. Now this is the tripped compression cube. So let's go over the general construction of the bag. The bag does have 2 different color zippers, black to compress, white to open up. It does have a handle and it does have toggles. And it's also made out of ripstop nylon. This is the first bag that does not have a mesh front. This is the first bag that doesn't open all the way. It opens 3/4 of the way. Now the benefit to this is if you're trying to pack something like a puffer jacket, it makes it much easier to cram it in there and zip it all up. But it makes it a little more trickier when you're sliding in your clothing. Now if they're rolled, in this case it might be easier because you're having these neat little packages. But if you flat pack like me, it might be a little tougher. But I'm not going to hold that against this bag. So let's see how many shirts I can get into it. So I have 11 shirts in here because I'm looking at the full line. And if I get too much further than this point, I find with compression cubes, I can't compress them. So let's see how it does with 11. So this compression cube could hold 11 shirts. And that's still pretty impressive. And don't forget the nice little trick of pressing them down because that makes them nice and flat. Now there's one other thing I want to say about the volume of the bag. This bag is not as deep as the bagsmart bag, so you have to take that into consideration. So now let's score the bag. On general construction, 3 out of 3, no question. So for volume, I'm going to give it a 2 out of 3 because it didn't hold as much as the bagsmart bag, but I have to say it still held a lot. I mean, that's a lot, 11 shirts. For ease of zippering, I'm going to give it a 3 because I think it did really good under pressure. So I'm giving this bag an overall score of 8. The next bag I'm going to be rating is the Bagail bag. Now let's go over the features of this bag. It has 2 different color zippers. One blue, like the finish of the fabric, and one gray. It has pull toggles. It has a handle. So it has everything that I like in a bag. This is another solid front bag. Another thing about this bag, like the tripped bag, is that it doesn't open all the way. It opens, I would say, 2/3 of the way. So again, if you're concerned about packing things like puffer jackets, this might be the bag for you. So now let's see how well it does with the volume test and the zipper test. So going by the sides of the bag, I'm going with 11 for this pack. Now let's see how well it zippers up. And I'm doing my trick of pressing down on the sides. And it holds 11 well, and it zipped up very easily. So on the Perry scale, it gets a 3 out of 3 for general construction, it gets a 2 out of 3 for volume, and it gets a 3 out of 3 for ease of zippering. So this bag gets an 8. Now this is the medium bag by Epicka, and it's a solid front bag. It does have handles. What it doesn't have is 2 different colored zippers, but it does have pulls. Now let's see how much I can get into the bag and how easy it closes. Now going by the sides, I put 12 in here. I don't know if it's going to compress with 12, but let's see. Wow, it closed with 12. I'm pretty impressed because I don't think this bag is as deep as the bagsmart bag. It's nice and even. You can see why I like flat packing. For the Perry score, I will give the construction of the bag a 2 because it doesn't come with the 2 different colored zippers, so I can't tell if I'm compressing or opening up the front. Now when it comes for volume, I'm going to give it a 3 because this bag held 12 shirts, and that's a lot, and it's not as deep as the bagsmart bag, which was the one that held the most so far, which was 14. So I'm going to give it a 3. And for ease of zippering, I'm also going to give it a 3. This bag gets a total score of 8. So this is the Eagle Creek bag, and it's also a very well-known brand. So let's talk a little bit about the construction of this bag. It does have a handle. It is made out of ripstop nylon. The zippers do kind of come in 2 different colors. Where you open it up, it's blue, and where you compress it is black. But this is where I find it a little confusing. The toggles are only on the part of the bag that opens the lid. I would think you would want the toggles on the side of the bag that compresses, but they're not there. They're just regular zippers. Okay, I don't get that. I think it's a little odd, but let's go on with the rest of the test. So let's pack out this bag. So I have 12 shirts in there. Okay, it's not compressing with 12. Let's try again. I have to say I'm a little surprised because this bag is definitely the longest of the bags. I really thought it would compress with 12, but let's take out, I'm going to take out 2 because it was really fighting me and I wasn't going to make it around. So that's 10. Let's try again. And it holds 10. So let's give it the Perry score. On general construction, I don't like the fact that it doesn't have a toggle here on the zipper because it has a toggle to open it up, but not where you need it the most, where you want to be able to pull, and that made it harder to even close. So I'm going to give it a 2 in construction. On volume, it held 10, which is less than some of the other bags. So I'm going to give it a 2. And on ease of closing, it definitely fought me. So I'm going to give it a 2. So for a well-known brand like Eagle Creek, I have to tell you, I only gave it a 6 on the Perry score. So this is the XBLGX bag. Now this bag is a mixed construction, more like the Gonex. It has the breathable web here and the ripstop nylon here. It does not have 2 different color zippers. It has only 1 color zipper, so you don't know if you're compressing or opening up the bag. It does have a handle here, and it does have toggles here. And the toggles are on both the compression side and the opening side. Now, I don't know how well this bag's going to do because this is overall the smallest of the medium bags. I try to pick them as close as I could to try, as I said, to show you apples to apples, but this is definitely the smallest. And the Eagle Creek was definitely the largest. But it goes to show size doesn't always matter. So let's see how many shirts I can get into this bag. So, judging again from the sides, I'm only starting off with 8 shirts in here. So now let's see how well it zips up. Well, that zipped up easy. So I think I'm going to try 10. Okay, so now we have 10 shirts in here. Let's zip it up and see how well it compresses. Wow, this little bag, and I do mean by far the smallest bag, held 10 shirts. So that's pretty impressive. So let's go over the Perry score. For general construction of the bag, I'm going to give it a 2 because it does have handles, it does have toggles, it is made out of ripstop nylon, but it doesn't have 2 different color zippers. On volume, I'm going to give it a 3 because it could hold 10 shirts, and I'm so impressed because this was by far the smallest bag. And for ease of zippering, I'm also going to have to give it a 3 because this bag zipped up no problem. I did not have to fight with it in the least. Now, if you're going strictly by the Perry score, the absolute winner was the bagsmart bag. And that was because it's also the deepest of the bags. The runner-ups are these. Now, I would not call those runners-up totally because they are not as deep as the bagsmart bag was. So the bagsmart bag is an outlier. And in that way, the bagsmart bag does do something different than those other bags do, which is it can serve dual duty. But another thing to take into consideration is if you're working with a clamshell bag, does the set of bagsmart bags work within your particular piece of luggage? And that's an important feature. If you're working with a bucket style bag, it probably doesn't make much of a difference. Another thing to take into consideration when working with compression cubes is airline compliance. Because you got to remember, if you can pack more into your suitcase, it's going to make your suitcase heavier. And if there's a restriction on weight, then you could run into problems. So you better have a luggage scale handy to make sure that you're making compliance. So here's a very unique compression cube that I was talking about in the beginning of this video. This bag is made by Peak Design and it has some very unique features. So let me tell you why this compression cube is so unique. The first thing I like about this compression cube is its zippers. Now, it doesn't have toggles, but it has very long built-in zippers that make it very easy to open or close. But I don't have to worry about that with this bag because once I close them, it opens like this. I really like that. So I'm not fussing around with zippers all the time. It also has on the back side of the bag a place for dirty laundry or extra stuff. And it's quite deep. And the bag is waterproof and made out of ripstop nylon. And because this bag holds so much, they finish the seams off really well. It has taping all around them. And that's what you want to see on a bag like this. And you wouldn't think so, but it does have a handle on it, which means it's easy to take in and out of your backpack, or you can hang it in your closet if that's what you want to do. Another thing I like about this Peak Design compression cube, even though it has a solid top and back, on the sides, it breathes. It has breathable fabric, and it's also quite deep, so you can get an awful lot of stuff in here. Now you can use this compression cube for any kind of packing, but what I really love this for is when I'm using a personal item only and one bag packing. And the reason for that is quite simple. I can put all my clothing in here, and by the way, this holds a ton, and I can keep my dirty laundry in the bag here separate from my clean stuff in the front. And when you're using one bag, that's quite a feat to do. Now this bag is more square than it is like a rectangle, like most other compression cubes. So you have to pack it out a little differently. And they made it this way by design because you can put pants in here as well as shirts. But let me show you how much this holds. So let me tell you what I just put into this bag. I have 12 t-shirts here. I have 2 pairs of jeans, a pair of black jeans, a pair of white jeans, my pajamas here. And watch me close up this bag. And you can see why I said this is such a wonderful bag for one bag travel. Now this is the bag uncompressed. I'm going to compress it now. And you can see how easily this compression goes on. I mean, I'm not fighting with this at all. I'm just doing what I said that you should do. So just pushing it around and look at this. It's just absolutely perfect. And look at how flat it packs. This would go into any small personal item bag and you'd have a week's worth of clothing in here if you didn't pack it out with t-shirts and be fine. And you can keep your clean stuff separate from your dirty stuff. And I think that's cool. And now that I showed you this bag, if you like the idea of one bag travel with just a personal item, don't forget to watch this video over here. And I'll see you in my next video. Bye.